Welcome back to the Game Collection, and happy Valentine's Day. You know, I fancy myself a bit of a fan of RPGs. They just strike a chord with me that just resonates. What's not to love? You've got your strategic battle systems, a sense of immersion into new and magical worlds, you've got interesting characters, and of course, that rich tradition of compelling storytelling. And today, in the spirit of Valentine's Day, I'd like to tell you guys about a game that continues that rich tradition of storytelling through a tender love story. And it has all that other stuff too. I am SuperDerek, and this is Lunar 2: Eternal Blue Complete. Lunar 2 is a direct sequel to Lunar 1 that takes place 1,000 years or so after Alex and gang fought to save the world against Dark Emperor Ghaleon. The game does make some direct references to the exploits of the previous game and may spoil certain parts of Lunar 1, so if you haven't played Lunar 1 yet, be sure to check it out before moving along to Lunar 2. Lunar 2, like Lunar 1, was initially developed by the late studio Alex and Game Arts as a Sega CD game. It was eventually remade with several changes for the Sega Saturn as Lunar 2: Eternal Blue Complete. This version was a Japan-only release until it was finally ported to the PlayStation, where it was localized by the late Working Designs. In Lunar 2, you play as a young treasure hunter and explorer named Hiro. Once again, the world of Lunar is in peril, as an ancient malevolent dark entity known as Zophar is on the verge of revival. Hiro, on one of his adventures, comes across a mysterious girl who holds the key to awakening the goddess, their only hope of holding back Zophar's evil forces. Lunar 2 is a perfect complement to Lunar 1. Despite taking place 1,000 years after Lunar 1, you still get to see some familiar faces and familiar places. The game ties up some loose ends left over from the previous entry, providing a little bit of extra closure. A lot of companies seem to have trouble with the concept of creating direct sequels to an RPG series, but Game Arts seems to have struck a happy medium of doing a great job of acknowledging the story of the previous game and expanding upon it just a little while creating a new story that is told in the same universe that still utilizes that same lore, but doesn't come off as feeling too forced. The mood of Lunar 2 is a light-hearted adventure. The story tends to linger on Lucia, a foreigner to this world and to human interaction in general. The game uses her to help us reconsider aspects of humanity that we often take for granted. It's with these fresh eyes that we are able to see the magic even in some of the more mundane aspects of everyday life. It seems like this would be a pretty fine line to walk without coming off as too corny or cheesy, but I think the Working Designs localization team pulled off the translation and voice acting perfectly. One of the things that I love about the Lunar series is that battles aren't random. Instead, taking a feather from the cap of games like Earthbound and Chrono Trigger, enemies can be seen roaming the normal map and avoided if necessary. Running into an enemy will begin a turn-based battle where your heroes assume their assigned battle positions. Because you can move everyone around, and because enemy attacks have different ranges and areas of effectiveness, you can devise some rather clever strategies for minimizing your party's damage, which becomes incredibly useful and even necessary towards the end of the game. This review also wouldn't be complete if I didn't mention the fact that this game has possibly the best epilogue that I've ever experienced in an RPG. So many times an RPG will leave you with so many more questions and begging for just one more final adventure to go on with your newly made friends. After beating the final boss in Lunar 2, You're given an opportunity to do just that if you stick around after the credits. The epilogue itself is around 5 hours long and contains some of the most grueling dungeons and battles in the entire game. Lunar 2 provides you with closure, and it's magnificent. In the words of a bit of a hero of mine, the ending is paramount. Outside of battle, we are treated to a classic 2D world that would fit right in at home on the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. The sprite-based artwork isn't really anything to write home about, but Lunar 2 definitely takes full advantage of the PlayStation hardware with its beautiful, hand-animated cutscenes and wealth of voice-acted content within the game. The audio did take a bit of a hit with the port to the PlayStation, but that was made up for with the inclusion of extra cutscenes and other exclusive bonus materials. Lunar 2 is chronologically the last entry in the series, and the possibility of a sequel seems, well, slim. There is still hope. The Lunar series does still seem to be somewhat active, since the first entry in the series has been ported to the PSP and iOS devices within just the last few years. After Lunar 2 was released, we also received a prequel called Dragon Song for the Nintendo DS back in 2010. As with Lunar 1, Lunar 2 came in some very nice packaging by Working Designs. Included with the 3-disc game were a soundtrack, a making-of video disc, a stunning hardback full-color manual, a cloth map, miniature standees, and a pouch containing Lucia's medallion, which feels solid and heavy. Acquiring a complete copy will run you about $60. Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete had some really big shoes to fill as a follow-up to the Silver Star Story Complete. But between the hard work and effort put in by Game Arts and Working Designs, this game delivered on every beat. And that's why it's got a spot in the game collection. Happy Valentine's Day, guys.